about our next inductee is his last name, because we share that. My second favorite thing is he's a grandfather, and his grandson is a freshman this year at Georgia Southern. Andrew, will you stand up and be recognized? Our next inductee is Julian Deal. Even for an accountant, Julian has always had a way with words. So much so that he has been the one to account for much of the history and details of the accomplishments and events that many of us would not recall. So this evening stands as the time for us to honor Julian Deal. Though the list of his own accomplishments and contributions to his alma mater and his community would likely keep us here until probably kickoff tomorrow, we'll be brief. Julian's first job on campus as a freshman combined a love for order and for athletics. He assisted then baseball coach J.I. Clements with taking roll for his classes and was paid a sum of $50 each quarter to make sure that students were in attendance at weekly intramural athletics classes required for freshmen and sophomores. The passion for the athletics team had already been sparked, and for one of the first graduates of the newly named Georgia Southern College, he was the 21st alphabetically, he'll be quick to point out, it began a lifetime love affair with the institution and the athletics program. After all these years, his affiliation with Georgia Southern has just grown stronger. And better yet, he's attracted a few more fans to the university and Eagle athletics programs. He and his wife, Frances, his mother-in-law and brother-in-law, are not just tremendous fans for the athletic programs. There's also an expectation to see their familiar faces at almost all Georgia Southern events. Julian has donated gifts of time, treasures, and talent to Georgia Southern as a CPA and a banker. His assistance and guidance simply cannot be valued. He has served as a member of the Georgia Southern Athletic Foundation, Southern Boosters, as it was previously called. He's been on the board of directors of that organization in the chairman's role and as a member of the executive committee and with duties on several other athletic foundation committees. Through the years, he has taken multiple assignments on university committees, including the Athletic Study Committee and the NCAA 1AA National Football Championship events. His dedication to his alma mater is more than evident just from his responsibilities to which he is committed. For 36 years, he has served as a member of the Georgia Southern University Foundation, was a member of the executive committee for 22 of those years. For the College of Business Administration, his roles have included council member, vice chairman, and chairman of the Business Advisory Council. He's a member of the COBA Hall of Fame and has been selected and was selected as COBA's Outstanding Alumnus of the Year. He was the first recipient of the School of Business Annual Alumni Award and the first recipient of the Beta Alpha Psi Zeta Delta Chapter Alumnus of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in honoring Julian Deal, the newest inductee into the Georgia Southern Athletics Hall of Fame.
You didn't leave me any time, I believe. Induction into the Georgia Southern Athletics Hall of Fame is one of the greatest honors ever afforded me. I'm very grateful for the nomination and also express my thanks to the selection committee that chose me. As I understand it, there have been 126 former inductees, bringing the total to 133. The induction of 7 tonight. Included in the 126 former inductees, there have been 10 contributors or supporters inducted, making me the 11th of that group. I know or knew in case of the deceased all of the 10 contributor inductees and am honored to be included in that group. I will not list all 10 prior contributor inductees, but allow me to mention one. That is Gene Bishop, who passed away in March of last year. His contributions provided funds for many things here at Georgia Southern University, both in academic programs and buildings. This building we are presently occupying was a result of a contribution of $2.5 million. Gene was a close friend of my wife, Frances, and me for many years. I assure you Gene would have been here as my guest if he were alive. I was his guest at his induction to this Hall of Fame 6 years ago, in 2006. And as much as I appreciate the honor, I do have a suggestion as to the title of the honor. If you look at the prior list, some of the 10, even though honored for the same contribution or support, are given different titles. Some are called contributors and some are referred to as supporters. I suggest to the committee that maybe contributor is a more appropriate title than supporter. Many of my redneck friends, and that's virtually all of them, are confused as to just what the award I'm receiving. After all, when you use the term athletic supporter among male athletes, the immediate thought for some of it is you're referring to a piece of cloth that the athlete wears to support or protect a certain part of their body. So I think you can understand my reasoning to refer to this honor as a contributor. Pardon me, but I have a number of guests, both family and friends, with me tonight. And I'd like to ask them to stand as I call their name and then be seated after each introduction. Of course, please hold in your applause. My wife, Frances, is here, and probably it is she who should receive the induction rather than me, as she is an avid supporter of Georgia Southern Athletics. My son, Barry, they're not standing, and his wife, Joy, and their 3 sons, Andrew, Alex, and Jack. My daughter Becky and her fiance, Joe Brinson. My wife and I are graduates of GSU, as well as my son and his wife and my daughter. My daughter Becky and my daughter-in-law Joy both have 2 degrees each. So you can see we have 7 degrees among 5 people. No way you can't say we're not true Georgia Southern. And of course, this slide took my introduction away. Andrew is now a freshman here at GSU. My wife's cousin, Peggy Gates, who just retired from Georgia Department of Agriculture. A longtime friend and neighbor, Hope Brunson, alum of GSU, and presently serving on the Athletic Foundation Board. He is a retired airline pilot. Hope, did you stand? Good friends of Frances and me, especially for the last couple of years, and parents of our head football coach, Mike and Nancy Monkey. Retirees from GSU and friends for many years, Dr. Richard Rogers and his wife Ruth Ann, and Richard was our faculty athletic representative for many years. Former Dean of the GSU College of Administration for many years, Dr. Carl Goody and his wife Ruth. Former President of Georgia Southern, Nick Henry, and his wife Muriel. Former GSU Vice President for Academics and on 2 occasions, the interim President of GSU, Dr. Harry Carter. And last, and I intentionally wanted to introduce her separately, is Brenda Carter, the wife of Dr. Harry Carter. Brenda was a 2004 inductee into this Georgia Southern Athletic Hall of Fame as an administrator. Brenda's just arrived home from Croatia, where she has been for at least a couple of weeks, representing the United States in the World Tennis Tournaments there. And she is currently ranked first in the United States in women's over singles competition. And she and her partner are also ranked first in doubles in the United States as we speak. I'd like to thank all my guests for honoring me. I've been an accountant, of course, most of my life, and therefore tend to use numbers more than most when I speak. But before you get up and leave, I assure you I won't give you all the numbers showing our approaching the physical cliff of the nation. Allow me just to give you a few he was leaving what he owed him. And Dr. Ben said, well, Howard made the delivery, give her $10 and give me $15. I tell everybody I'm worth at least $25 because that's what it costs to get here. I'm still seeking a refund of the $15 charge by Dr. Ben deal, as I was to learn many years later that upon his return to Statesboro, he did not complete the necessary paperwork to record my birth, and I had to prove to the state of Georgia that I actually existed. Dr. Ben Deal had two sons, Albert and John, who were also doctors here in Statesboro for many years. His son, Dr. Albert Deal, was a closer friend to me than he was Ken, and I served as his CPA for many years and executor of his estate. Dr. Albert was the first chairman of the Georgia Southern Academic Foundation and served in that capacity for many years. I graduated from Portal High School here in Bullitt County on May 25th, 1956, at the age of 16, which I like to brag about, even though I became 17 about 6 days later. I entered Georgia Teachers College as a freshman about 3 months later and graduated 4 years later in June 1960, just a mere 52 years ago. Wade Levin's the only one that can relate. I was one of the first graduates of Georgia Southern College, and my June 1960 class was the first class to graduate under that name. The Board of Regents changed the name in the latter part of '59 from Georgia Teachers College to Georgia Southern College. The enrollment for the year ended June 30, 1956, the year I enrolled, was 750. And for the year ended June 30, 60, the year of my graduation, there was a large number of 1,185. Tremendous growth, 58% the 4 years I was here. Compare those numbers, Dr. Keel, with the current enrollment of 20,212 thereabouts, and you will see that it's grown 20 times the number as it was when I graduated. Tuition when I was a student was a large amount of $55 per quarter, or $165 for the 3-quarter year. Currently, I believe that rate is around $6,600 a year, so now $165 compared to $6,600. Books back then probably were $5 to $10 each. J.I. Clements, our first athletic director, as Todd has already said, engaged me to meet his intramural classes, which were required of freshmen and sophomores. She said he paid me $50 a quarter. Now, tuition was only $55, so I had it made. I also worked 2 years in the business department at a great student rate of 50 cents an hour. Later, I realized how dumb I was in doing the intramural attendance for J.I. Clements. Most of the students I knew personally, and many were local, and most of them were older than me. I could have just as easily gotten much more money if I let those students pay me bribery money and walk in the president and let them be out. So I guess I'll just have to chalk that up as another missed opportunity in life. J.I. Clements started a Big Blue Club after I graduated, and that was probably my first experience as a supporter of athletics. As members of the club, I remember we had fancy Palm Beach sports coats with very large removable bananas. Man, we thought we were at high class. To complete my presentation, let me just use some numbers as it applies to the facility on which we're presently located, which I have been a part of as a volunteer. The acreage here was acquired when we were going to start football. It was purchased from a local contractor who had financial difficulties at the time. He had acquired it from a family estate back here, which had been divided into 5 parcels. This parcel, approximately 54 acres, was acquired for $2,000 per acre. As I remember, Glenn Bryant from Hinesville gave us one check for $208,000 to make the purchase. Therefore, as shown at the bottom of the scoreboard at the other end of the field here, it is named Glenn Bryant Field. The construction of the football stadium was accomplished in large part with the use of in-kind contributions. A friend of mine from here in the Devils community of Bullitt County, and with whom I served in the Georgia Army National Guard for 6 years, Jesse Anderson did all the earth moving with the equipment of his road paving business, and also burns for pouring the concrete for our streets. Alan Paulson was at the time owner of Gulfstream in Savannah, and Dale Lick, our president, secured a contribution from Alan for $1 million, which I believe was given in one check, and therefore the stadium was named for Alan Paulson. We issued $1,650,000 in 20-year serial bonds to finance what we thought was a maximum cost to construct the stadium. But having very little experience in constructing football stadiums, we were still short by about $700,000. And Dale Lick, who had asked anybody for anything, went back to Alan Paulson, told him we were short, and asked him for $700,000. Alan, I was told, smiled at Dale and said, "No, Dale, but if you raise $350,000, half the amount, I'll give you the other $350,000. We quickly raised about $420,000. Dale went back to Alan Paulson and told him we raised $420,000, wasn't he going to match the $420,000? Alan gave us the $350,000. The revenue bonds were paid over 20 years, and the final maturity was in the year 2004, just 8 years ago. I assisted in overseeing those bonds and their payment for all 20 years. A few years after the initial issuance, I was able to issue replacement bonds for the remaining principal at that time because interest rates had decreased in those years from what it was in 1984, the original issuance date. That reissuance and defeasance of the initial bonds saved us $100,034. The bond agent in Atlanta, whom I had been working with for weeks, called me one afternoon and said, the day before the sale of the bonds, that we would save $98,000. I told him that would not work, as I had told the board of Southern Boosters we would save $100,000, and he could just take that needed $2,000 from his commission. He called back in a few minutes and said, "How about $100,034?" And I said, "That will work for me." There are other stories I could tell you about the stadium, but briefly too. First, a number of years after construction of the stadium, we got another $350,000 from Glenn Bryant for the lights that are still here on the field. I wrote a one-page script asking Glenn to light his field for us, and used those words multiple times in the one-page presentation: light your field for us. Bert Russell reluctantly went behind us when we made the presentation to his friend Glenn, and he gave us the funds. Secondly, when we constructed the stadium, the booths on the home side were one story, and we very much needed to have a second story, for which we already had the architectural drawings. I got 3 local banks to participate in a loan for, as I remember, $984,000 to construct the second story, and with the revenue derived from the rooms and booths and skyboxes, we paid that loan off in about 5 years. Let me conclude with just a few more numbers these are contained in the recorded history of this institution. And I've taken these excerpts from that recorded history. It was December 1, 1906, around 5 a.m., that a delegation of people began gathering at the Jekyll Hotel, now City Hall here in Statesboro. One of the group, riding his horse, as he usually did, was a youthful and energetic attorney, Albert Mitchell, cousin. History says that he carried with him a satchel stuffed with copies of deeds, agreements, petitions, and newspapers, all relevant for an event he considered the most important in the history of Statesboro, and that was to travel to Savannah by train to bid for an A&M school. The final vote was in favor of Bullock County delegation and was based on a bid of $125,500, which was comprised of cash $60,000. Land 300 acres, total value of $40,000. Electricity and water for 10 years, $25,000. Telephone service for 10 years, $500. Total $125,500. There was evidence discovered here in Statesboro in 2006 that there was a big secret in Albert Deal's satchel. Attorney Deal assured the Bullock County delegation for which he spoke he controlled more than 300 acres of land. A notepad found in his papers reveals a major error in addition. In the heat of the bidding war, someone miscalculated the acreage at 302 acres, adding the different parcels of land, the acreage of each together. The notepad clearly reveals the delegates had access to only 287 acres, 13 less than their official bid of 300. This would probably have given the bid to another county. I had often wondered what my inspiration was to become a CPA, and this solidified it. Cousin Albert Deal got an A&M school, now Georgia Southern University, located in Statesboro, by adding a few numbers incorrectly. The genes of my Deal family may have contributed to my becoming a CPA. Deal Hall, located on Sweetheart Circle, is named for attorney Albert Deal. Could it be that maybe without his math skills, we would not even be here tonight? I hope not. As I say, it's been my privilege, honor, and enjoyment to have been a part of this university as a volunteer in both academics and athletics for most of the 52 years since my graduation, and I look forward to the future of the university that we all care for. Thanks for the honor.